be humble enough to ask for help.
Hmm.
And that's twofold.
All right.
So being humble and humility goes both ways. So ask people for help. Don't ever think that you know everything, or you can always go out to your network and ask people for help. It's the first thing of being humble. Then the second thing of being humble is be able to take criticism in terms of what you've built and people poking holes at it.
Hey everybody, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey, and I am your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that has grown several companies, 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as founded Miller IP Law, where we focus on helping startups and small businesses. And so today on the podcast, we have another great guest, Ray McKenzie, and I'll let Ray talk a little bit more about himself in just a minute, but Ray is the founder of Starting Point that helps customer service management be simplified. And also, before that, he was he went to San Diego State, worked for a few different companies, had an offer to do a biocheck company in the Bay Area, and then the company was going to go down in a ball of flames, and so he decided to switch paths and do a whole bunch of exciting things along the way. So with that short introduction, welcome on to the podcast, Ray.
All right. Hi, Devin. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you and talk to your audience.
So I gave a very brief introduction, but I'm sure didn't do near the amount of justice that it could have. So with that, why don't you take and tell us a little bit about your journey and what brought you to where you're at today?
All right. Sounds good. So thank you for that. So I'm from a small town called Atwater, California. It's in the Central Valley of California, near like Fresno or so. And then I went to San Diego State and studied management information systems, which is the business side of computers for the most part. And then after school, moved to the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, or what became Silicon Valley for the most part in the early 2000s, and worked with a couple of early stage startups. I joined one early stage startup. So, after the biotech disaster, which was, and a career changing idea for me, or experience, moved to another internet infrastructure startup. We were wildly successful. I was extremely young. We took that over the course of the next 4 years to be from being in the red to being in the black. And then we were able to be successfully acquired by a company out of Washington, D.C. Worked with that company for another 4 years in various different types of roles. Then walked across the street to their competitor, who was also in internet infrastructure and cybersecurity and cyber intelligence. Then worked with them for another 3 years, and then my wife and I, we decided, hey,
jumping in just for a half a second. So you had walking across the street to the competitor. Yes. I can't imagine that the current employer is probably happy, but maybe they were. Maybe it was layoffs or other thing. Well, what made you decide to walk across the street to the competitor?
With the original company I was with, I was part of the executive team of the company that got acquired. And so I was the last one to actually leave the company who acquired us. And it was more so just career growth. It wasn't a layoff. It wasn't anything of that nature. It was just, okay, I'm ready to do something new, ready to do something a little bit more exciting. And a friend of mine contacted me and said, hey, we're building something across the street. Would you like to come? And I was like, hey, let's do it. Let's build something new. Let's have some fun. Okay. And so joined that company, built that company up in terms of its products and services and support and service delivery and a lot of different roles. And then we eventually were either number one or number two in our product category of what we were providing companies. And then over the course of this time, my career spanned anything from support and service, professional services, account management, sales engineering, business operations, business strategy. And, I got exposure to a lot of different roles at a really young age, doing a lot of different fun and exciting things, and then growing and working with some amazing people.
Hmm.
Over that time, I was traveling quite a bit, traveling, I'd say every 2 weeks, somewhere different. So San Francisco to Washington, D.C., somewhere in between. There were a lot of different things that I had team members all over the world, probably led it, I think at the highest amount, gosh, had a department of 500 full-time headcount across the world. And so from there, just continuing to look for new challenges and new opportunities. And then my wife and I, at this point, we have 4 kids. Our oldest son was starting to play a lot of basketball. So we took an opportunity to move to Los Angeles. A company hired me to do global strategy and service delivery. And so next thing you know, I'm flying from Los Angeles to Belgrade, Serbia, to Frankfurt and Munich, to London every month.
I'm going to jump back just a little bit, just because you jumped over what it sounds like. And so you had, and I think you said you have 3 boys and 1 girl. Is that what I remember when we talked before?
3 boys, 1 girl. Yes.
All right. You're just the opposite of me. So we got 1 boy and 3 girls. So both of them have their pros and cons and their good things and bad things. And, but at least you got a mix of both. So, or was into basketball. So was it really, hey, I want to provide a different life for the son, want to provide the basketball career, and so that's what you moved to LA, was what we talked about? Or is it you were wanting to a career shift, or was it all of the above, or kind of, because that seems like, kudos to you as a father, but it just seems like it's a big career jump to move to LA to provide that opportunity. Not saying good, bad, or indifferent, but just thought that was an interesting point of a reason for the career shift.
Yeah, it was. I'd say the career shift was Sarah combined a lot of different decisions or choices. So my son wanting to pursue basketball was a big thing, which is on the West Coast. If you want to play good basketball, Southern California is kind of the center of it. Okay, so that was an aspect of that. Then another aspect was, do we really want to live where we live in the Bay Area? We had been there 13 years. We kind of wanted some different things in our life. I wanted to live near a beach. And so Southern California provided that option for us. We also have family down here in Southern California. For a lot of family, a lot of friends. I went to school at San Diego State. My wife went to Cal State Northridge. So it was probably a good time for us to get around family, friends again, and really start to grow that. And then I also wanted to get to a smaller company. So I was working with another public company. I wanted to get back to a smaller company to pursue innovation, change, excitement. New products, new companies, things are moving faster. I just wanted more innovation within my career. Okay. And the way to get that innovation was going to a smaller company.
All right. So then you make the transition, you make the leap, you provide the smaller company, you have a change in career, make more of an impact, allow for the son to be able to be in the epicenter of basketball and all of that good things. And then I think you said, so you made that jump, and then you made, at one point you were flying back and forth over in Europe, and you had kind of, I don't know, I guess what I'd call an epiphany after that, after you flew back and were walking on the beach. Maybe jump into and provide a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so we ended up, relocating to Los Angeles for an opportunity with a great company, with great people. Here in Los Angeles, we live in Redondo Beach, so we were able to kind of get that beach life as part of things that were happening. So we moved out here, and then I was going to Eastern Europe and then Western Europe and LA once a month. I have 4 kids. I have a wife. I like and love them. I kind of want to think they like and love me. And so it was one of those things to where that travel schedule was pretty hectic, because I'm gone for 7 to 10 days at a time. And so I flew back from Europe. And this goes to the epiphany experience. Fly back from Europe. I go to lunch in Hermosa Beach at Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Los Angeles is a very different culture. Next thing you know, I get out there, and at 1 o'clock, people are out there happy as ever, acting like they have nowhere to be, but they're definitely handling business, and they're able to afford this kind of lifestyle. And so that piqued my interest, which was, I've worked in San Francisco, I've worked in Washington, D.C., I've worked in New York, I've worked in Chicago, worked in a lot of different areas. And, you know, if you're in the corporate environment, it's kind of one of those things where you're up at 7 a.m. working and you end working at 7 p.m. And so I was always in search of, okay, what's the better quality of life? And so while I was at lunch, I started to have conversations with just random strangers like, hey, what do you do for a living? What allows you to be out here at Tuesday at 1 p.m. with nowhere to be? And it all came down to, you know, I got various answers in the space, but it all bubbled up into running your own company or running your own firm. And so with that, I left that lunch saying, I want to start my own company. Okay. And then actually verbalized that and said, I want to start my own company. And so as I said that, so I kept thinking about, go ahead.
Just because so when you walked up to strangers, how did that conversation start of, hey, you don't know me, but why are you here instead of at work? Or how did you have that conversation?
Well, it was more so sitting at the bar of restaurants, you know, and sitting at the bar and having something to eat and having that conversation, just striking up a random conversation, whether it be about sports or current events or, hey, you know, finding something in common, just, hey, you know, what do you do for a living? You know, they're asking me what I do for a living. And so I ask it back. And so that led me to get those answers from a group of people.
All right, that makes much more sense. In my mind, I almost saw you walk around the beach just seeing random people and saying, so what allows you to be here at Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, not at work? I need to work. Why are you not working? You know, that makes more sense. So, all right.
And so from there, I left lunch and I said, hey, I want to start my own company. This is that path. A week later, I got calls from 2 CEOs and executives of companies. And you know, they were like, hey, we need your help. Our companies are growing and scaling. Do you think you could take on a couple of projects? And I was like, okay, well, I'm still working full time with this company I'm here with in Los Angeles, but yeah, let's do it. And so I did that I did both of those for the next 6 months. And at the end of the first 6 months, I was like, this is really what I want to do. This is the next phase. And that's how I started my consulting firm, Red Beach Advisors. And Red Beach Advisors is a technology management consulting group focused on strategy, operational efficiency, and digital transformation. And so it started with corporate strategy, market strategy, and go-to-market strategy for companies. And then on the operational efficiency side, it's all based around Lean, Six Sigma, Agile methodologies, project management, product management within companies. And then you get digital transformation through technologies, which is going into companies and kind of transforming their environments to utilize technologies that can benefit them either in cybersecurity, cloud computing, or maybe even injecting some software as a service initiatives to create efficiency. And so I started that about 5 years ago. And you know, you go through your ups and downs in terms of having a company and starting a company. And in year one, I had clients and customers. In year two, I taught myself how to sell because I started my company with clients. So it was completely different. I created it out of a need for other people. So I didn't create it thinking, hey, I just think this is something people want, or I want to start a company. I created my company out of need, and I'll bring that forward. And so year two was teaching myself how to really sell, how to pursue, how to develop contract, or how to develop relationships, how to develop contracts, partnerships. Year three was great. Year four was great. Year five has been fantastic as well. And then fast forward to Starting Point, and kind of how Starting Point kind of came to be is I needed a tool within my consulting firm to where I could manage internal requests from customers, clients, small businesses, medium-sized companies, and even some of our larger clients. And then also be able to have that visibility for communication across my team. So consultants that were working for my consultancy firm and how they were engaging with clients and customers. And so from there, I kept thinking about this idea, and I had this on a notepad for 2 years. Like, I need this tool, I need a tool. And I kept looking out there to like, hey, what kind of tool would help me do this within my company that was affordable? We're a small business. It doesn't need to use IT to development resources. It's easy to implement and it's efficient. I've seen a lot of tools that are out there that are, you kind of need to be 70% developer or engineer to be able to use it. Or you
Which
need
are the
to.
worst type. I'm in complete agreement in the sense what astounds me, it took me a little while to figure it out or, and to understand it is, a lot of times when you look at, whatever the tool is, especially in software, making something simple is a lot harder than making it complex or having a whole bunch of features. So making it that intuitive, easy, simple, oftentimes you want to say, oh, we need to add in all these features. We need to add in all this complexity. We need to add in all these abilities to customize. And not sometimes you don't need some of those things, but you get it to be so complex that almost to your point, you have to be a developer just to understand it. And then the common person is saying either one, it's way too much work to try and figure it out and use it, or two, I can't even get it what I need to, and I just want it to do X. And so I completely agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. And the goal is building a simple and efficient tool that companies can use, service-based companies and teams can use. And so as I was building it, and once again, that goes back to building something or structuring something out of need. I needed it for Red Beach Advisors. So now I've got a tool that does exactly what I wanted to do for my firm and my company in a simple and efficient manner. We launched it May 15, 2020. So it's relatively new, 45 days in. We obviously have customers now, so it's great. Going through the process of building it was an interesting journey. And so, it's exciting, and it leads back into innovating, developing a tool out of need that I saw that I needed within my own company. And we're going through the journey.
So you did that. So you launched it. You've been in 45 days ish from when you launched, or a month and a half or so. So because I always wondered, and we're actually in a similar path. Developing one of the companies I'm a part of is on the legal industry, but it's one where there's a lot of kind of you have a lot of project management tools out there, and but there's something specific for the legal industry. And there's really about 3 or 4 providers, all of which in my mind are just terrible, and that just don't have most of them look like they were made in the 1990s and they've never updated them, and so they're just all horrible. So we actually are a little bit in the same process, out of a need for needing to have a much better project management system than the legal system. We're creating something internally and then going to say, hey, well, if we need it, other people likely need it, and it's probably applicable in the marketplace. So now I'm trying to glean off of your experience. So going to launch that, taking a tool that you needed internally, you were always looking for, really wasn't out there, and then turning around and selling it. What are the lessons learned, or how have you gone about approaching that to actually get that out in the marketplace, get people to be interested and do that? Is it using natural, your network or people in the industry? Is it making cold calls, or how have you gone about launching in the last 45 days?
Gosh, man, I'll tell you this, taking a product to market, since it's completely different than my experience with Red Beach Advisors, my consulting company. For starting point, that was extremely challenging, because you're always fighting that perfectionism and that idea that is it ready? Is it ready? Is it ready? And that's always a challenge. For us, what I did to kind of come together with this idea was, obviously I had the idea for myself, but I also went out to 150 different other service-based companies or teams and polled them as to, hey, what are you using? What features do you need? What problems do you have? What challenges do you need to solve? And in going through a lot of that research, that just general market research of people I know across companies, clients of mine, vendors of mine, it all came down to one thing, which is client and service management. That was a challenge for all of them, which is, we've got a lot of communication coming from a lot of different areas. We need to solve these challenges. And we're a small team, but we need tools that are simple for us to use. And so I was like, okay, we'll do that. That's what we'll build. And so that created the initial demand for it. Then as we went forward and kind of structured a team, I started to really lean on people that I knew a long time in my lifetime. So that professionally and personally, I've always been a person that's always held relationships very close. in terms of friendships and professional relationships, personal relationships, and checking in on people and just following people movement and making sure people are okay. And so I have a wide network of individuals I've been able to, develop a great relationships with. And so I've been able to develop a team of 10 people. And that's myself, my head of sales, my head of engineering. I've known my head of sales 20 plus years. I've known my head of engineering since 7th grade. One of my operations platform leads I've known through another client that I managed on the consulting side. And then my sales team is all through people I've known throughout my career. And to a certain extent, a benefit of the pandemic is they're going through periods where they're looking for different opportunities in terms of sales, leadership, and really the ability to get involved at the ground level with a company that's providing a tech solution, a software as a service solution that's out there. And so I built the team, and then obviously the components of moving the product to market were challenging. You've got a lot of steps. You've got your corporate steps, you've got strategy, you've got pricing, you've got marketing, you've got product development, you've got product support, you've got all of those things that you've got to tie together, along with the infrastructure and operational aspect of it that you got to manage. Like, you don't want to say, here's something that's in the market, and then you sell it to somebody and then it immediately crashes and burns. Like, that's not what you want to happen. But that process of getting to that point, it took a while. It took a while, and it took a lot of hours to get it to that point. So, if you really want to focus on building a product or inventing something, it's going to put in a lot of work, and your first version is never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
However, it does need to be useful and serve its purpose for people who are paying customers.
Yeah, no, and I'm in complete agreement with you. And I think that, you always hear, I think it's the old cliche, maybe it's just the one that I've heard is, perfect is the enemy of good, right? In the sense that if you're always striving for perfection, you're never going to launch a product. It's never going to go anywhere. You're going to either burn through cash reserves, you're going to burn through that. And so, I always hate the word minimally viable product, because in my mind, it always means I'm going to put out the crappiest product as quick as I can and see if people will pay me for it. But I think that, I always go with the maximally viable product, which means understand your constraints, how much money you have, how many resources you have, how quickly you have to get to market, and then say, what can we reasonably do to get the best product out within that amount of time, which is makes more sense to me. But I certainly get that. And I liked how you kind of highlighted that, what you did was you take a lot of the people you met over your career, you made connections with, you were comfortable with, you knew that their skills and their talents, and you're saying, okay, if I'm going to build a team, I'm going to go with the people, 1, that I trust, 2, that I know that will do a good job, and 3, that I have a good relationship with. And that's how you're going to build a team, which I think lays a good ground foundation for success. So, well, as we start to get towards the end of the pod, there's always a whole bunch more things that we can talk on, and never have enough time. But as we start to get to the end of the podcast, I always have 2 questions I always ask. And so maybe we'll jump over to those now. So the first question I always ask is, what was the worst business decision you ever made?
Gosh, I'd say the worst business decision. You're easily joining that biotech company early in my career. I took an opportunity directly out of college with an education company, which was actually a Michael Milken company. So if you're not familiar with his story, look up his story. And then I got a job. I was extremely young, and I took a job opportunity with a biotech company for $2,000 more annually. And, I was like, oh yeah, biotech is the new way, such. Let's go. I don't know anything about biotech. I don't know anything about pharmaceuticals. I was obviously in their IT department, and I made that jump. And while it was the worst business decision I made, because the company eventually went under, it taught me a ton of lessons. So it did serve dual purpose, but that was probably the worst decision I made at the time, I want to say. Right. And so, whereas typically in my network, I meet a ton of people, there are a lot of people inside the company, it's made me stay away from biotech and pharmaceuticals in every aspect of my entire career.
All right. No, I think that That's a, and sometimes it's enticing either because of the startup nature or the, the technology they're in or the extra pay bump or whatever. But it's sometimes you jump in too quickly or you don't vet. And sometimes you just have to learn those lessons of, hey, I thought this
Yep.
was a great idea. And sometimes there aren't any flags on the forefronts, nothing you would have changed or you would have known beforehand. But it's one of those that you can learn a lesson along the way. So, all right. So as we jump in now to the second question I always ask, which is if you're talking with somebody that's just getting into a startup, just getting into a small business and getting going, what would be the number one piece of advice you'd give them?
Be humble enough to ask for help.
Hmm.
And well, that's twofold. So being humble and humility goes both ways. So ask people for help. Don't ever think that you know everything, or you can always go out to your network and ask people for help. It's the first thing of being humble. Then the second thing of being humble is be able to take criticism in terms of what you've built and people poking holes at it, because those people will help you build a better product. And so, when people are arrogant about the product they've built or their concept, they don't really ask for help on one side. And that's challenging, because if you don't ask for help, everybody needs help. Everybody needs help. That's why you build a team. That's why you have advisors. That's why maybe you want to go raise money from people and work with people like yourself, Devin, and lawyers who know more. You need help, and then on the second side, when you do start showing your product to people, or you do start showing your idea, your vision to people, be willing and able to take criticism. And so you have to be humble and have some level of humility to say, open yourself up to say, hey, I want to show this to you, rip it apart. And give me your toughest feedback, toughest critique, and be willing to take that in, internalize that, and use that, and then put it back into your product to improve it. That would be my advice for anybody. It's been a struggle, just in terms of, I built my consulting firm how I wanted to build my consulting firm, but building a product for other people to use is a completely different experience, and everybody has a different point of view, but you do need that external feedback.
No, and I think that's good. I mean, and I think what people realize, you may not take all the feedback, you may not agree with all the feedback, and some of it may just be wrong or not be, but to be able to be open to take that feedback, take that criticism, and be able to incorporate the good parts or the things that will improve the product, that will make things better, I think is an attitude that you need to learn. Because if you're so closed off of, hey, I know how to do this, hey, I know, I don't need any feedback, don't need any help, then you're going to get in your spot in a position to where you're deaf to what the needs of the market is, to what the clients are, customers are, and you're not listening to how you can improve and make things better. So I think that's definitely some good lessons to learn of asking for help, as well as being. Now, it's not easy to take criticism. You have to still yourself, especially if you've been working on something for months or years and you put in a ton of blood, sweat, and tears, and then somebody pokes a hole in there that you just. It's true, and you need to fix it, and you need to do it, but it's really hard to say no, it's fine, like I don't need to fix that. And so you have to still yourself before you ask for the criticism. But I think it's something that if there is a hole that needs to be plugged, it's much better to know about it than not. So
yeah, exactly, you hit the nail on the head.
So all right, well, as we wrap up, so if people want to reach out, they want to get to know more about Starting Point, they want to make any connections, they want to invest, they want to be hired on, they want to talk with you, they want to be a customer, any of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Definitely. The best way to reach out to me, you'll find me on LinkedIn, Raymond McKenzie, founder and CEO of Starting Point, and Starting Point is all one word. You can go to our website, www.startingpoint.ai. And you'll find all of our contact information, collateral. You can request a demo, and call us if you need to. And those are kind of the best ways to follow us and reach out to me. And once you reach out to me, obviously we'll be able to set up some time to talk. If you need advice, if you want to see the product, if you want to do a demo, if you're interested in utilizing the product for your company, or if you just want to start to develop the relationship between us, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll schedule some time to talk.
Well, awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out to you, get to know the product more, get to know you more, and you have a fun story to tell. And always, again, wish we had more time to tell it. But appreciate you coming on. It's been fun to hear your journey. Appreciate the advice and the lessons learned. And for those of you that are wanting to now tell your journey, that you have a good journey to tell and would like to apply to be a guest on the podcast, feel free to reach out to us at inventivejourneyguest.com, and you can apply to be on the podcast. And for those of you that are listeners that are listening to this episode and want to make sure that you catch all the future episodes and the new ones coming down, make sure to subscribe to the podcast. And lastly, if you need any help with patents and trademarks, feel free to reach out to us at Miller IP Law. Well, Ray, it's been fun to have you on. It's been an interesting and fun to hear your journey. Wish you the next leg of your journey as well as the past legs have been, and look forward to seeing how things go for you.
Definitely. Thank you for having me on the podcast, Devin. Appreciate it. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you as well. Pleasure talking to your audience, and looking forward to, the developments on both sides of our companies.
All right.